Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 2021 Mazda CX-5 Signature, and today I'm going to show you how this is one of the best SUVs you can get for the $40,000 price bracket. Back when Mazda unveiled the first generation CX-5 in 2012, it came out looking as a rather generic thing, though it did set the stage for how we know the CX-5 to be today. And since its 2012 arrival, the CX-5 has gained many new features and a ton of extra stuff. Today I'm going to show you all of that. What you're looking at here is the second generation of CX-5, though it's had a few refreshes every here and there, and some new trims such as this one, the Signature trim. So with that said, I'm going to show you all the things that the CX-5 has gained over the past 9 years. So we start the review, oddly enough, at the back, where you can see the sheer amount of badges that the car has gained. I mean, right here you can see you've got a CX-5 badge, a Signature badge, an all-wheel drive badge, a Skyactiv G badge, and a turbo badge. Ladies and gentlemen, that is 5 badges. While we're on the subject of all of these badges, I guess I should talk about some of the meanings behind these. So right here you have Skyactiv G, which is the type of engine that powers the CX-5, and oddly enough, that is the same engine that they put in the Mazda Miata for USA buyers. The only thing that's different about this engine is the turbo. This turbo is able to help the engine create 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque if you put it on premium gas. And while we're on the subject of the engine, take a listen at a cold start and exhaust. So take a look at what made that mighty sound. You can see right here, you've got the engine. There's not a whole lot going down. There's a turbo somewhere. We've been looking for it for quite some time. We can't actually find it in here. But besides that, it's a very typical engine.
Go.
As for the gauges, you can actually see right here, we have a red line because that's actually the speed limit. The speed limit on this road is 35, and Mazda is able to identify that. I actually have a heads-up display right in front of me. I'm not sure if that will come across on camera or not, but you can actually see your speed and what the speed limit is. And on the screen itself right here in the gauge cluster, it highlights your speed in red. So I guess that's one less excuse to speed in this car, because really, you do not feel speed in this car. It just accelerates so smoothly, you couldn't really tell. Mazda did a really good job at kind of tuning out all the fuss that engines typically give you. You really don't have a lot going for it in terms of noise and all of that. It's just a very silent engine. It's surprising for a car in this price point. But there again, this car is sold as a luxury option to the CR-V, the RAV4, etc. And it does a good job at that. And of course, before we go into the interior, we need to talk about the styling of the CX-5, as it has won multiple awards. And honestly, this is one of the biggest reasons why CX-5 owners buy these cars, and it's because of its styling. The Kodo design language that the Japanese use, at least for Mazda, it looks stunning. The lines all flow so very nicely. There's no complicated or boxy lines anywhere. You can really see how well it pays off on this car right here. And now onto the interior of the CX-5, where you can see the gorgeous design and materials that they've used. Of course, you have the brown Katura leather, which is standard on the Signature trim Mazdas. You have beautiful sen wood on the sides of the doors and aluminum peppered right about everywhere. This is where you really start to see just how premium the CX-5 is in its Signature form. While we're on the interior, we do need to talk about some of the features that you get in the Signature CX-5. And starting off with cooled seats or ventilated seats. They're 3-way. You can go ahead and see they make quite a ruckus. You can actually hear that. That's not the AC running. Those are the seats. You can see when I go ahead and turn it off, it's gone. And of course, you have heated seats right above here. You have 3 settings as well. This goes for both the passenger as well. So various different settings in that sense. then looking at the gauge cluster, you can see it's a rather weird situation going on. You have a screen going on right here in the middle, which you can control by using the info button. You get various pieces of display going on in the middle, which is really cool. But you notice how only this right there changed. That's because your revometer. And while we're on the subject of the gauge cluster, we need to talk about what this thing right here really does. And what it does, instead of resetting your tripometer like you would think it would do, you go ahead and press it, and that's how you change from miles per hour to kilometers. You go ahead and press that right there. That's what it changes. In other Mazda cars, it actually changes how much your temperature, your oil temperature, how much it shows on the little graph. But for here, it changes from miles per hour to kilometers an hour. And this right here, they're both manual gauges. So like it's cool that they try to include a fully digital gauge, but then like somebody at Mazda's department, they were like, yeah, that'll cost too much money. How about we make it like half of the screen? And so that's what they did. So like it's a half digital gauge cluster, half real gauge cluster. Nonetheless, it's cool how they made it work, but yeah. And of course, we need to talk about the massive screen, which is new for 2021. It's a 10.3-inch screen, and it features Mazda's new OS, if you will, their new operating system, which is a whole lot better than what their older system was. Their old system wasn't particularly great. It was very hard to use, and this kind of puts everything in an easy to look method. And as you can see with the screen now, all that you have is the time, and you might be wondering how you can go back to the original screen. And the way you do that is you go ahead and press the home button right here once more, and if you're trying to go back and get rid of all of these terrible things, you can go ahead, press the home button again, brings you right back there. However, the biggest downfall about the screen is the fact that yes, it is indeed not a touchscreen, and that's not a joke. You go ahead and press, you have nothing. This screen legitimately is not a touchscreen. The only way you can operate is by using this little scroll wheel right here. Earlier CX-5s, you'd be able to use it only while you're going under 5 miles an hour. But for the 2021 model year, they were like, screw it. There's no point in us giving this. There's no point in giving touchscreen if it works half of the time. So they just completely took it off, and that's arguably the biggest takeaway. And the last thing about this screen that we need to talk about is the camera system. And you can see it's a relatively good camera system for what is a $40,000 SUV. You can see right here, you've got your front-facing camera. That's right, I said front-facing camera. When you're in drive, it'll show the front. You go ahead and shift it in reverse, and you can see it now goes to the back camera. Of course, on the side, you have a 360-degree camera. And if you were curious on where these cameras are, they're actually on the door. I go ahead and open this door, and you can see right there, that angle suddenly starts to change. That means that it's mounted on the mirrors, which is really cool. As for the front facing, it's right there. That's where your front facing camera is. As for the rear, it's the same that you use for this light right there. And the last thing we need to talk about in the front of the CX-5's interior is the shifter. And while there's not a whole lot of crazy stuff going on, there is one thing worth mentioning, and that's right here, your M, or your manual mode. How you go ahead and engage it, you go ahead and move it to the side just like that, and you can see you have a plus for down and a minus going up, and that might seem counterintuitive initially, but not really. While you're driving and you're giving it all the beans, your tendency is to get pushed back, and while you're getting pushed back, your tendency is going to be to push the shifter back, and therefore that's your upshift. Same thing for when you're braking, you're being lurched forward, so you go up, and that's your downshift. If that doesn't float your boat, you can go ahead and go to the paddle shifters mounted right on the wheels. You have your plus right where you think it is, and your minus right where you think it is. Yeah, again, you get upshift and downshift. They move with the wheel, so it's not mounted on the actual steering rack. So really, you have multiple ways to shift your gears in this car. Of course, you have your regular automatic mode, which I reckon almost every single buyer will use, but except for people like me, who like using their manual cars, this is as close as you can get. Another thing about the front of the Mazda that we need to talk about is right here, the center console. You can see you have this little bucket where you can go ahead and put coins, cards, anything you may ever want to put in. But you can go ahead and rip it out completely if you're not pleased with the amount of space that you have. And when you go ahead and do that, you can go ahead and fit 2 water bottles. You can put them standing up like this and it'll close in very comfortably. Or if you do want to have that little tray back in, you can go ahead and close it like that and put that. You can have both. So you can see it's actually fairly roomy center console for what looks like a very small one. And while we're on the subject of the center console, you can go ahead and see right here, you have 2 USB ports, not Type-C, just regular USBs. And right here you have another cigarette outlet, with the other one being right here. And of course you have this button right here, which would be room for an SD card. When you go ahead and take it out, you can kind of see it right there. That's what powers the navigation in this car. Obviously right now we're on Waze because we're on Apple CarPlay, but when you were to go on Mazda's regular infotainment system, that's what brings you to the navigation. Another thing about the Mazda CX-5 Signature, comes with a Bose sound system. You can see right here on your A-pillar, you've got a speaker right down there on the door panels, and overall we counted 8 speakers in the CX-5, though there might be 1 or 2 more peppered around the interior, because you've got 2 all the way down in the boot, you've got 2 below right there on the doors, and then you've got 4 in the front, 2 on each side. One more thing about the interior of the CX-5, right here you may see there's this weird indentation. You're wondering, what is this for? And actually, it's a credit card holder. If you've watched our video for the Mazda MX-5 Miata review, you'll see that we went crazy for the little credit card holder that we had right up here. And yet again, Mazda has delivered once more with giving us a nice little credit card holder. You can put it right here, and when you actually go to slide it in, it's nice and concealed, so again, nobody would know about it. And welcome to the rear of the CX-5, where you can notice a lot of the luxury things from the front have been continued in the rear. Again, you have the wood on the side panel, you have the aluminum underlining right there. Even right here on the door panel, you have some aluminum going around the piano black where you can put your window down, which are power operated. You can see the window doesn't go fully down because of all the stuff that they have going on here. Another thing about the rear, you can see right here, you have this armrest, but it does a whole lot more than just being an armrest. You have heated seats for both sides, not for the middle. And then you press this right here and unveils 2 USB ports, not USB-C, but USB regular ports, and a little secret little storage cubby right here. 2 other things about the rear, you have your own set of climate vents that is controlled by the front, but at least you have your climate vents. You can control how much steam you want coming out of them, if you want it strong or if you want it weak. They do work rather well, so that's good. And of course right here you have your reading lights, which instead of being that ugly yellow, you have nice LEDs and they look and feel super great. Ladies and gentlemen, that was your tour of the 2021 Mazda CX-5 Signature. And as you can see, it's very obvious as to this being one of the most luxurious cars that you can get in the market that it's in. You compare this to the CR-V, the RAV4, all of them, they're rather kind of plastic dinghies with 4 wheels on them. As in this feels luxurious. This makes you feel like you're in a Mercedes, that you're in an Audi, that you're in a BMW. So for that, I respect it. Thanks for watching, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my cameraman. His name is Prabhat Naumili, and he's the one who helps makes all of these videos possible. So, of course, massive thank you. So, this is a cracker. And while we're in the interior, we need to talk about some of the features the CX-5 Signature offers. First off, you can see right here, I have heated seats. They're cooled. That's cooling. That's cooling. That's hot. That's cold. Bring me back to 3rd grade. Or like 1st. Kindergarten. Clown.